Nevertheless, let me introduce Mr. Wim de Kessel. He's a Group Vice President, Standardization and Regulation at Legrand. And on behalf of Senelec, he's present here with us. To briefly introduce him, since 2020, Mr. Wim de Kessel has held the position of Vice President, Standardization and Regulation at Legrand Group, focusing entirely on national, regional, and international standardization initiative. In this capacity, he diligently monitors regulatory development globally, including India, overseeing all confirmatory assessment activities within the Legrand Group. Furthermore, Wim de Kessel serves as the chairman of various Belgian technical committee and represents the European Committee for Electrical Installation Equipment Manufacturer called SICAPI in the Senelec Technical Board. As the chair of TC23BX of Senelec, he plays a pivotal role in coordinating efforts. Mr. Wim de Kessel, please take the floor and open the session by inviting other speakers. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Dinesh. And thank you very much for being here. I mean, cybersecurity is a very important topic. And therefore, I would like to call upon our experts and first of all, the keynote speaker, Mr. Sri Golok Kumar Simli. So can you please take the chair? And secondly, we have Mr. Ajay Kumar Garg, Director and Head of Digital Tech and Law, Anand Associates. So please come to the front so that we can further start the session closely afterwards. Then the third person I would like to call is Dr. Sriram Birudavolu. Please join us here on stage. CEO Cybersecurity Center of Excellence. Then we've got Dr. Debabrata Nayak. Please join us on stage for Head of Security of Ericsson. Then Mr. Kiche Butler. Thank you very much for joining us on stage. Scientist C, Deputy Director, BIS. Then Mr. P.K. Singh, Deputy Director General, DOT. Online, so thank you. Mr. Lal Chandran, also online, virtually, very good. Mr. Walter Fumi, who's also going to be online. And Mr. Martin Michelot, which is also going to be online. And Mr. Slavomir Gorniak, Senior Cybersecurity Expert in ENISA, who is also going to be online. So I propose to first have a few words about data privacy and cybersecurity. So cybersecurity market in India is poised for expansion, driven by increased mobile device usage, secure authentication practices, and shifts in antivirus software. In Europe, frameworks like eIDAS, digital ID wallets, cross-border data transfer agreements, and common data protection certification schemes are in the pipeline, promising enhanced cybersecurity and privacy standards through joint efforts. Many important policy initiatives have been taken place both in India and in Europe. So in India, there is the Personal Data Protection Bill. There was also the Digital India Initiative, which covers cyber data protection and online safety. The National Cyber Security Strategy of 2020 and the National Cybersecurity Policy of 2013. On the other hand, in Europe, we have ENISA, who has developed the cybersecurity certification schemes. There's also the Cyber Solidarity Act and the Cyber Resilience Act, and also the NIS2 for organizations, critical organizations, and also the Cyber Security Act. So a lot of cyber things. India is also at the forefront of groundbreaking research and development in identity verification, showcasing significant strides in various domains. Initiatives such as robust SIM card sellers ID verification, new digital locker program. The Aadhaar ecosystem has also seen enhancements complemented by initiatives like eKey infrastructures contributing to comprehensive and secure identity verification landscape. The European Union and EFTA underscores its commitment to secure digital identity. Solutions through strategic frameworks and initiatives. The eIDAS regulation established a robust framework for electronic identification and authentication, emphasizing security, interoperability and reliability. In the realm of the cybersecurity, the EU and EFTA adopts a proactive stance as evidenced by the NIS2 directive, which outlines essential cybersecurity measures. There it also implements consent management frameworks, formulates comprehensive data breach response plans, and adheres to stringent cross-border data transfer standards, reinforcing its commitment to safeguarding digital assets and privacy. Europe and India are also cooperating and collaborating on this very important topic. And there are a few partnerships worth mentioning, such as the EU-EFTA-India Cyber Dialogue of 2015, which fosters cooperation in data protection, cybercrime prevention and critical infrastructure. There are joint working groups supporting these efforts through joint exercises, trainings, programs and information sharing. The EFTA, the EU-EFTA India Joint Declaration promotes shared vision on data protection, cybersecurity standards and trusted digital ecosystem. It also has the ICT standardization collaboration with Indian stakeholders, including the CESAE project, of course, which aligns the privacy and the cybersecurity standards. And then another collaboration is done through the EU-EFTA India Trade and Technology Council, so the TTC, sorry, where also a platform for discussion for trade, technology, cybersecurity, data privacy and digital economy. And with this as a context, I hope that the interventions today of our esteemed speakers and technocrats will further the impetus required to create synergies between India and the EU and EFTA in the realm of smart cities. So I would like to call upon our first keynote speaker, or the first speaker and keynote speaker, and I just need to change my items. So Mr. Sri Golok Kumar Simli, Principal Advisor and Chief Technology Officer in Ministry of External Affairs. So I suppose everybody has the complete bio. As we are running a bit out of time and we have a lot of people to speak, I would like to call you on stage for the first intervention. Thank you very much and a warm applause. Thank you.
The PPT. Oh, okay. Slide mode. Yeah, perfect. Thank you. Good afternoon and thank you all of you. Let me at the outset thanks the organizer, especially Bharat Exhibition, Mr. Shashi, Dinesh and team for having me here, and of course the colleague on my dais. In fact, today we are talking about data privacy, cyber security at a large. But let me take you a little deeper when you talk about data security, cyber privacy, no personal data protection, and so forth. In government, if you ask me, our prime concern is how to deliver services, how to deliver schemes for a larger public good, right? And when I say larger public good, we don't differentiate between a demography, geography, literacy, illiteracy, rural, urban, economic conditions. So we have so many challenges, right? And when you are delivering to the masses at large, looking for a larger public good, one side you have to ensure that the kind of a impact, the kind of a empowerment, the kind of a inclusivity you are looking for. But at the same time, how do you reach them? How do you connect them? How do you deliver them? The only way is, at least what I understand over the last 25, 30 years, the only way possibility is the technology way, digital way, right? And if you go to the digital way, I think no one of us here can say negative saying that in terms of security, cyber security, data privacy, the challenges are intact. The moment you talk digital, the moment you talk technology, the challenges are imbibed into it, right? And if that is the case, how do you look both sides of the coin? One side, you are trying to deliver something big, transform something big. Let's say, I can quote plethora of examples, right? Whether I talk about passport services, Aadhaar, GST, GST, I mean plethora, railway, income tax, whatever I name it, right? And other side, as I said, you have to take care of your data security, privacy, personal data. Today we have enabled DPDP law, personal data protection law. So how do you balance both the coins? I mean both sides of the coin. That's the challenge. Now, if we move forward, I think the other, if we see all of us, whether I come from government, you come from industry, someone from academia, someone from research institute, or if I see the global scenario also, especially in India, what we are dealing with, or what is the way forward we are looking for. These are the way forward I am looking for, right? $1 trillion of digital economy by 2027, $5 trillion US dollar economy, overall economy by 2030. And how do you measure this achievement? No? How do you reach there, whether it is 2027 or 2030? The aim is to these 4 or 5 bullets. We need to promote more and more digital economy. We need to look digital at a grassroots level. When I say grassroots level, the core issues, as I said, whether it is economic condition, whether it is a rural-urban divide, whether it is a literacy gap, whether it is a kind of a demography-geography gap, right? How do you reach at a grassroots level? And then when I'm looking for a growth, development, it must be inclusive. I must not differentiate, and that's why I think wherever I speak, I say that the digital has to be, or the technology has to be, there is something called, must follow the principle of digital democratization. Can we do that? Can we do that, right? And whenever we are looking development, the another challenge all of us today, and the tools and technology, whatever we are developing as part of your, driving the change, or in terms of, let's say, protecting your data privacy, cyber security, both sides. The core is the energy, right? And how is the today's economy? You know, the today's economy is purely based on something I call hydrocarbon entrenched economy, right? It's purely based on fossil fuel, gas, coal, right? So how do you come out of that energy and go towards, let's say, renewable energy in terms of solar, wind, so on and so forth? So again, when you strike a balance between all of these, the challenge is building those technology one side, the development other side, creating a balance between them, and then maintaining this ecosystem. When I say ecosystem, the sustainability, the energy transition, and so on and so forth. Otherwise, we don't exist. You and me don't exist, right? And that is why I think some of the biggest platform what government of India is aiming for to drive this kind of a change, to create a balance, to multiply at a large scale and at a speedy kind of a rate, these are the platform we are trying to unlock, right? And I mean, you can see on the slide, all of these, it is our already under implementation, some are already being delivered, some are now at the stage of implementation. But believe me, these stack, India stack, it's not changing the face of the way we look into digital, but also it is giving an example to the global community saying that how do you look digital when you look for a larger public good or a global good, right? I think this is my favorite slide, and that's what I said that, say that mostly one slide can speak all. And this is my favorite slide. Now, whatever we do, whether, as I said, any of these large transformation, if you see all the middle row, every one of us, we are trying to achieve this, right? Whether it is process, policy, change management overall, whether it is a secure digital workflow, whether it is anytime, anywhere kind of any device kind of a scenario, mobile first adaptability, everything is on your mobile. Today, I again say that there are two most powerful devices I feel, Google and mobile, right? If you have these two devices with you, you can have everything sitting here, right? Faceless and cashless kind of a scenario, paperless kind of a scenario, and social media, one of the powerful tools today, right? Now, if I am dealing with all those rows in between, I think I must need to understand those 5 Ws, right? And what are those 5 Ws? If I need to deal with those data security principle, if I need to deal with those data principle, data privacy principle, I think I must understand those 5 Ws. And these 5 Ws are nothing but your workload, your workforce, your workflow, that is the application, the workspace, and last but not the least, the web, the most powerful tool, right? And if you can understand these 5 Ws, divide your workload, develop a mechanism to deal with your stakeholder, workforce, data, how do you collect data, how do you harness data, how do you disseminate data, how do you share data, but then we must understand these 5 Ws. And while you understand those 5 Ws, I think data is the crux. Data is at the core, right? What all we are talking about today about data security, privacy, cyber security, it's all about data, right? And if I need to understand data vis-a-vis those 5 W principle, then I must map those 5 V's of data into those 5 W's. How is those 5 V's, volume, velocity, veracity, variety, how they are hitting towards those 5 W's? Can I really map that? Can I visualize? Can I make an observability out of it? And believe me, whatever program I am doing, at least I can visualize. And believe also, let me also say that if I can make a kind of a assured level of cyber security and privacy, because I can understand those 5 V's mapped into those 5 W's, and then I can definitely drive those 4 S I'm looking. What are those 4 S I'm looking? In terms of speed, scale, security, and sustainability, right? So that is why I'm saying this slide tells everything. This is the crux of every transformation. Whether I am doing passport, someone is doing GST, railway, whatever I talk about, you can map it everywhere, right? But then, can you take a holistic view? The problem we do is, you look sometime to a consultant, sometime towards an agency, sometime kind of a silo approach. That doesn't work. That absolutely doesn't work, right? And then once you define that slide, I think then you go to your digital landscape. You can achieve this, what I am saying here, the second slide. The another very important, I think, the experience is that how do you sustain over a time? Is that government alone can I deliver? Is that industry, you alone can create such kind of a footprint which I am looking for? Or a academia or a research institute can create that kind of a footprint what we all are looking for? No, absolutely not. We need to collaborate, right? We need to drive business model, we have to innovate business model where every one of us, each of a stakeholder has a win-win scenario. Everyone can have a say out of it. Can we do that? And believe me, we have developed these kind of a business model within the government system. And that's why I think we are able to deliver at a scale, at a speed, the kind of security and privacy challenges I am able to deal, the kind of technology I can adapt, the kind of technology I can refresh whenever I need, and I am sustainable over a time. That's the crux. It's not day one. Can you sustain over a time? And what I did for that, I only did that, some of which we say in government sense, there is something called sovereignty and there is something called non-sovereignty. I only did that, I segregated the sovereign portion from the non-sovereign portion, drive the business model so that the industry is participating into this game, this transformation, and the sovereign, I mean the lower 3 row, or I'll say lower 3 row, right from day one, I am owning the program, right from day one, the entire regulatory under control are with us, entire management control is with us. But if you go to the upper rows, right from design, build, finance and operate, this has been collaborated with the industry partner, right? And see that the beauty of this model, what do you get? The beauty of this model is you get all of these, right? I do not need any budget from government. I am self-sustainable, right? My service assurance, my service quality, my technology, my manpower, training, change management, every bit of it, it is part of the business model, right? So can we develop such kind of a business model? Can we innovate? I'm not saying at all saying that this is the only model, but this is one of. This is one of. This is another my favorite slide. We are talking about data security, privacy, so and so forth. But to do that, I must understand the principle of something called data governance. And to understand the principle of data governance, I also must understand the insights of those data points, right? And to understand, to analyze, to go into those insights, I think today the technology, the emerging technologies are helping us like anything. These are creating opportunities for us, whether it is AI, ML, whether it is bot, whether it is cloud as a platform, whether it is big data as a platform. But the only problem is how do you leverage this emerging technology unless you have those data governance principles, unless you are ready to understand those insights. And once you do that, then do not forget something I call rules of engagement, right? And what are those rules of engagement? The rules of engagement are nothing but your compliances, processes, regulation and acts, and the law of the land. Today, for an example, we have enabled DPDP Act, right? This is one of the slide, I mean, how do you move to a cashless kind of environment? One of the example just I have taken saying that when you benchmark something, some transformation, how do you benchmark? You would only able to benchmark this provided, as I said, if you start looking holistically, if you take a holistic approach in terms of a process, policies, data, people, stakeholders, and then probably this benchmark you can set, which I am setting for, right? And believe me, this is not I am saying, this is my citizens are saying, right? Some of more feedback. I am continuously moving towards a next level of transformation where I will be doing a lot of other things, and that's why I say that this is always a continuous journey. So thank you once again, Bharat Exhibition and all the organizers for having me here. Thank you.
So thank you very much, Mr. Shri Sholak Kumar Simli, for your well understood explanation. Now, I would like to propose to first go to the people online, and then I'll come back to the people on stage, so that we have a complete overview. Knowing that time is limited, again, I will start with the first person online. I hope Mr. Lal Chandra, the CEO iGrant.io, is joining online. So can we hear you? Unless we go to the second speaker and... Sorry? Mr. Walter Fumi? Okay.
Do you hear me? Yep.
Oops. Okay, Lal, the floor is yours. Thank you for joining us.
Thank you. I just want to make sure that my slide, it is version 2 that has been streamed. Hello? Is my slides being streamed, or do you want me to stream the slides?
We're getting to that. Just a second. Okay. So you can see it. So we switch it. Let's switch it. Okay. Good. Okay, the floor is yours. You're still connected? Did you see it on screen, Lal? Your presentation? Because it was shared here in the room.
I'm waiting for the confirmation if my slides are being shown or if I should be shared.
There you are. You can see it now? Project and share your screen. And that way you're also going to master the way forward.
Happy to do that.
That looks nice. Perfect. Floor is yours.
Brilliant. Thank you. So let me just try to rearrange this here. Yeah, so good afternoon, everyone. My name is Lal Chandran. I'm the co-founder and CTO of iGrand.io. iGrand.io is a data intermediation service provider defined as per the European Data Governance Act. We are a company based out of Sweden with offices in Kochi in India. As a data intermediation service provider, we provide access to what we call as the right data, data that is scalable, lawful, and verifiable, combining digital wallets with consent management. Welcome to my presentation today, where I will share our experiences towards looking at how to mobilize data across organizations, applicable both in the Web 2.0 world as well as Web 3 worlds, using our state-of-the-art consent management enabling data exchanges. In this presentation, I will particularly focus on consent management framework that we have developed using a data exchange agreement suite and how we realize it in practice is what I'm going to explain. Traditionally, if you look at how with little or no regard to end-user privacy. These companies capitalize on unclear data regulations existed then to acquire massive amounts of data, of big data, about customers' behaviors and profiles to provide advanced personalized services. However, with data regulations emerging worldwide, like for example, whether the GDPR in Europe, the DPDP Act in India, a centrally aggregated model is no more a viable option forward. So in order to mobilize data and continue with the digitalization investments, in our mind, there are three key challenges organizations need to address. These challenges are, number one, as you can see on the screen, lawfulness. Then every organization has to ensure that whatever data they are processing is as per the law of the land. Second, they need to ensure that they need to address the concerns that has been traditionally there with the use of data, where there is no misuse and the information about the data processing is transparent to the end users. We also believe that there is certain amount of auditability required going forward. The third aspect is essentially about ensuring that the citizens are in control of the data, for example, with the use of a good tooling. And today, lack of such tooling makes these processes extremely cumbersome. So these are the major challenges: lawfulness, data misuse challenges, and effectively creating a consent solution that ensures transparency and auditability to every parties concerned. So based on our research that we have carried out for the last 6 to 7 years, talking to experts all over the world, we came to this conclusion. What the industry needs is mechanisms where every personal data transaction is trustworthy and auditable with regulatory compliance during a data exchange transaction. So when you look at a personal data transaction, we see three essential actors involved. The organization themselves. Organizations could be organizations that are consuming data or exposing data, individuals and auditors. For organizations, they need to be able to prove their legitimate rights in the use of personal data in every data transaction. If there's any kind of audit, they have to be able to show it. Any kind of request coming from users, they need to be able to prove how they are processing the data from a legal perspective, for example. From an individual point of view, individuals need to be in control of the data and know how it's being consumed by organization. I often say this is very much similar to a banking transaction. We would like to be in charge of how we manage our finances. Similarly, we would like to be in charge of how we manage the data. Last but not the least, the auditors, where they're able to independently get end-to-end insight for any data transaction. This slide illustrates a typical data exchange landscape and showcases how a data intermediation service provider such as the iGrand.io as defined by the EU Data Governance Act, helps organizations across access and share personal data. Here, iGrant.io provides consented data exchange and verification services. It guarantees control access based on individual consent to use their data. In the figure, for example, the organization that is the data source and the data using service can exchange data if the individual consents and agrees, and every personal data transaction is digitally signed cryptographically and can be proved and audited at any given point of time. Here, the data intermediation service provider facilitates the data exchange transaction without touching any data. So it acts purely as a mediator, and the actual data is entirely exchanged between the data source and the data using service directly using what we call as a consent tokens. So in a typical data exchange ecosystem I presented earlier, it requires various kinds of agreements. These agreements are formulated based on the relationships and roles between the parties involved, that is, the individual organizations and auditors. So between the individual and organization, there is something called the personal agreement. And between the organizations, it's called data disclosure agreement. So this is the data agreement that the individual signs. And this data agreement suite is based on certain standards, certain key drivers. So it could be based on the law of the land, for example, the GDPR. This could be based on social and ethical norms such as the My Data Principle, FAIR Principle, Trust Framework, or it could be based on standards and architectures. So this key driver is very much derived from, if you're familiar with the Code of Law, Lessig's law of regulating the internet, essentially. So every company that wants to process the data, we have formulated a data agreement workflow where every company is defining and preparing a data agreement with regard to their processing of the data. These data agreements will have clear purpose. They may be based on a specific lawful basis, consent being one of them. And once they formulate and prepare, they can push these to individuals who can sign the agreement. And at any given point of time, this agreement could be used by auditor or internal processes. For example, a machine learning algorithm could very much be looking at these consent records before deciding to process certain data for example, for mass aggregation and analytics. So to summarize what we have been doing in the space, iGrant.io solution is based on what we call as data agreement standards, and we enable access to right data in terms of lawfulness, scalability, and verifiability, where individuals stay in control over their data. Our data agreement suite is based on ISO standards, the ISO 27560, which we have been very much being part of. From a reference point of view and from contribution point of view, our data exchange agreement suite is recognized as a digital public good. It is also being taken up as an implementation by GovStack. So for those of you who are working with IndiaStack, for example, would be familiar with GovStack. It's a United Nations initiative led by ITU. We are the one who is implementing and helping the GovStack to realize the specification that has been laid out with regard to public sector usage of consent management. We as a company have implemented digital wallet implementations catering to the large-scale pilots that are happening as we speak within Europe that enable cross-border data exchange using Web3 technologies primarily. We are also working tremendously in the health space, establishing what we call as the European data space with multiple regions in this part of the world between Norway, Sweden, and Finland to enable seamless cross-border health data exchange where citizens can pretty much get their care regardless of where they are. They're able to carry the data in this kind of wallet technologies and share it with ease without having to go through a traditional, say, API-centric model. All our work is very much open, out there in the open, based on open standards, based on specifications that are open. In certain situations where, such as, for example, the data agreements, we have ourselves specified it and published as white paper. So for those of you who are really, from an academic point of view, is also able to download a white paper that is available in IEEE. And all our implementations are, as I said, is also very much based on open standards and technologies. And that's very much my presentation for today. Feel free to contact us for any further details. We are based out of Sweden and India, and with expertise in business, technology, and legal aspect to construct a scalable, verifiable, cross-border data exchange infrastructure with consents built in with every data transaction. Thank you all for your time, and thanks for listening.
Thank you very much for this contribution, very much appreciated. And as time is really flying, I would like to go to the next speaker, being Mr. Walter Fummi. He's the chair of Senelec, the GTC 13, on cybersecurity and data protection. And Mr. Fummi, are you online? Mr. Fummi, are you online? Can you hear us? Problem, time is running.
Recording in progress.
Mr. Fummi? We don't seem to hear you. I'm looking at the technical staff to get some. Sure. Mr. Fummi, are you online? Would you be able to share your desktop so that we can see the presentation? But of course, if you're not online, maybe we should go for the next speaker online. Do we have Mr. Martin Michaud? Michelot, sorry. We don't hear any voice from the net. Do we have the people online? Sorry? Okay. The first speaker now? Okay. Good. So we have some issues online. So may I invite Mr. Ajay Kumar Garg to the place here for starting your speech. I'm very sorry to have to say you got less than 10 minutes. So be my guest. Yeah, you can you come for your okay, thank you.
Thank you. Good afternoon, friends. Good afternoon to the European Conference on Standards and Emerging Tech, and thank you for inviting me. So in spite of all the progress and all the great work on digital we still lack the capability of connecting seamlessly. So there are challenges. The cyber is still a challenge, and that's why all these conferences are about, that we as experts need to solve that. How do we solve? The BFI was here, the network and all. So let's leave aside all this. You must have heard a lot about GDPR, what are the nuances of the GDPR, how matured is GDPR implementation in Europe. Recently, India enacted our own privacy law, the DPDP Act. and various elements, whether it's the fiduciary, the concept of a fiduciary, the consent-based framework for sharing data and all this. But what I will touch about, because of my experience in the government negotiating the trade agreements, I'll touch upon data, cybersecurity, and the bilateral trade agreements. So I thought that this will make more sense. So as you are all aware, India is negotiating a number of trade agreements, and most of them with advanced economies as compared to the past, when we were mostly dealing with our own developing economies. We are in the very mature stage of trade negotiation or an FTA with UK. We are negotiating it with Australia, Canada. I don't know where Canada will lead to because of all geopolitics. We are renegotiating it with Korea, Japan, and most important of it, that what we started in 2013 is a free trade agreement with European Union, got stalled in 2016 around 15-16. No, we started in 2008 and got stalled in 2013, and we have reopened those negotiations last year, and we are negotiating. So what is the difference that has happened from 2008 to 2023 in terms of the trade negotiation? The traditional trade agreements were centered around two things, that is goods and services. Goods formed a part of the WTO and set norms of good trades under the WTO, the GATT and the GATTs, and they were custom duties, and the main element was that how do we actually lower the custom duty benchmarks against WTO to improve trade between two bilateral partners. And India and EU actually were struggling around that how do you actually handle duties around wine and whiskey. And that was the central to 2008 negotiations. But in 2023, the things have changed. The elements from goods and how do we allow more Indian manpower or services to flow into the European geography, giving them more work visas, allowing them to move seamlessly between the member states. The discourse has moved from these and have centered around that how do we do more digital trade? How do we seamlessly allow the digital companies to operate across borders between the two geographies, say for example India and Europe? And here the two central elements to such a trade negotiation are privacy, cross-border data flows, and cybersecurity. And these have become central to this. India and Europe were never at same terms in terms of the digital trade because we did not have a privacy law, and they had a privacy law called the GDPR. And the safe harbor mechanisms of data flows from Europe to other geographies is that you should have the similar standards of data privacy as prescribed in the GDPR. In spite of the fact that privacy is a cultural nuance also and might differ from cultures to cultures, and India and Europe, the culture is very different. Here, a mobile belongs to a family, there it belongs to an individual. That's the difference between the privacy between India and Europe, and you have to deal with privacy very differently, but yes, they wanted similar norms. Now with DPDP in Act, that once the rules are out and it is implemented, there is a similarism. But now the second challenge has come is on the non-personal data front. There is an increasing sovereignty or sovereign barriers to non-personal data that I foresee in the future happening. Because data has become central to future economic growth of nations, there will be more instances of increasing localization of data, and that will be the challenge that the free trade agreements have to grapple with, that how do we come to terms that data moves seamlessly if you want to allow the benefits of AIs and IoTs and the emerging tech to actually flow across borders. Because cyber is a borderless world, but the laws have limitations or border restrictions. And that's the difference between a cyber world and a non, and it's, we talk about a standards conference today, and we are not discussing data standards or privacy standards, data privacy standards. That should be one of the very important parameters around which the data regulations should be. You can't have 180 privacy laws across the world and talk about privacy, talk about the benefits of digital reaching the last mile. And that's, I think, a dichotomy that exists in the world, and I think the data standard, the standards, this conference should actually, one of the recommendations should be that there should be some sort of a data privacy and cybersecurity standards that needs to be followed across borders. In terms of the cybersecurity, you know, there are, the countries are grappling because of the massive amount of financial transactions happening through digital means. There is increasing instances of cyber attacks, and that happens because of two reasons. There, like the cert to cert agreements normally happen as bilateral agreements. There is no international regulation that should say that countries should share cyber instance data with the country which is affected, or a citizen in a country which is affected. So if some cyber fraud happens from Nigeria, I have got no means to catch a person who is doing this from Nigeria and doing a cyber fraud in India. So these are some of the very important issues that needs to be addressed internationally, but hopefully the digital trade chapters in the trade negotiations are trying to address these issues, and these have become core to the future trade agreements that will happen between countries. The UK-India trade agreement, which is in very mature stage, is now grappling with the fact that how do you negotiate a good cross-border data flow agreement between two nations, because that will be deciding that how India's and UK's digital trade happens. So I thought that this will be important. I know you are struggling with time today, and I'm also, I've got a flight to catch. Thank you once more for giving me this.
So thank you very much for this intervention. And yes, we are running a bit late at the moment, but it was very interesting, because harmonization of regulations all around the world is also a very important topic, and has been handled by other people than the people in standardization. So I hope we have now Dr. Walter Fumi online. And Dr. Fumi, do you hear us? Mr. Fumi? Dr. Fumi?
Yes, I'm here. I hope you can hear me.
Okay, we slightly hear you, so this will be okay. And you are sharing your desktop. Can you switch screens?
So this is not the right presentation. That's where we are. Thank you very much for the opportunity to present at this conference. I'd like to use my 8 or so minutes to give a brief introduction to my committee,
Dr. Fumi,
JDC 13,
sorry,
its
Dr.
program
Fumi,
of work and its role in supporting European cybersecurity regulation.
Dr. Fumi, can you please switch screens on one hand and just to make sure that
Yes,
we're
please.
not running over 8 minutes, because otherwise we are getting in real trouble.
I'm not sure how I would change this.
So if you could tap the third tab on top of your screen starting from the left, then you're switching screens. That could be interesting for us, because it's a bit small. So left on top
So
of
I'm
your
wondering
screen,
what this
the
is,
third tab.
The screen we have. So who are we? JDC 13 is one of many joint technical committees of CEN and CENELEC. We are proud to have more than 200 leading European experts on cybersecurity and data protection supporting our many projects. And in the first 6 years of our existence, we have managed to publish about 50 cybersecurity standards and 17 alone in this year so far. Our plenary typically meets 3 times a year, and secretariat support is provided by DIN in Germany, and that's also where I'm sitting at the moment because internet connection at my home broke down totally
Dr. Fumi,
for a couple of days now. And they are giving me asylum.
sorry,
So,
could
what's our area of work? JDC 13 focuses on the development of horizontal standards in the field of cybersecurity and data protection for use by vertical application domains. And as always, exceptions may apply. In all cases, our work is driven by European market needs. And our key areas of work include security requirements, services, techniques and guidelines, security management systems, frameworks, methodologies, also data protection and privacy, and assessment and evaluation. The new kid on the block is a working group on cryptography we just established a couple of weeks from now. Development of standards can either happen via the identification and adoption of documents published elsewhere, for example, by ISO IEC JDC1, in particular SE27 there, also by other SDOs, by international bodies and or industrial fora. Or the second stream, development of standards, can also mean that we're developing specific CEN/CENELEC publications. Now this shows how our work is organized. There's one advisory group, and currently we have 7 working groups dealing with different sub-areas, with working group 10 on cryptography being the latest addition, as mentioned before. And working group 8 and 9 are dedicated to support specific European regulations, namely the Radio Equipment Directive and the pretty new Cyber Resilience Act. Coming to achievements in the first years of our existence, we worked hard to identify and adopt the most relevant SE27 standards, most relevant being most relevant in the context of European needs, and this chart shows the outcome. You probably recognize a substantial fraction of the 27,000 family of information security management standards here. or also the infamous common criteria, also known as ISO AEC 1548. The chart also shows that updates or revisions at the international level are typically mirrored in updates at the European level. Our first homegrown standards were published last year, including a document on security requirements for smart meters, that's TS 17880, a lightweight evaluation methodology, that's EN 17640, and a document on data protection and privacy by design and by default, that's EN 17529. The current year has seen 4 more dedicated Sentinel applications developed by our version 5, and also the CSIP, a security evaluation standard for IoT platforms developed in collaboration with global platforms. Now, in the final section of my presentation, I will briefly look at our work from the perspective of European cybersecurity regulation, and I assume that the next speakers, that will follow from Lisa, will follow up on this. Now, let's start with the Cybersecurity Act, the CSA, and its certification schemes. For the first one, EUCC, the Common Criteria-Based European Cybersecurity Certification, JDC 13, may can offer adoptions of a number of relevant international standards. In case of the second one, EUCS, the European Cloud Services Scheme, JDC 13 is currently developing 2 dedicated standards known as EUCS1 and EUCS2, and both are expected to be published next year in 2024. Also, the guidelines on sectoral cybersecurity assessment as a channel supporting document are close to completion. In case of the radio equipment directive and the standardization request coming with REC, JDC 13 has decided to establish a dedicated working group, namely working group 8, for developing the harmonized standards requested, and there's 3 of them: a general document on requirements for internet-connected radio equipment, 1 on radio equipment processing data, and 1 on radio equipment processing virtual money or monetary value. And the 2 final examples are the AI Act, the Artificial Intelligence Act, where the draft standardization request was published a year ago. And in this case, Senator JDC 21 on artificial intelligence has the lead, and JDC 13 supports and cooperates. And recently, JDC 21 has established a dedicated working group, working group 5 on cybersecurity for AI. And finally, the Cyber Resilience Act, CRA, where we have an early draft of the standardization request that was made available for comment in July of this year, and Senator established a standardization request ad hoc group there to consolidate the feedback on this draft, and we also have established a dedicated working group in this case, our working group 9, that coordinates the JDC 13
Okay, thank you very much for your contribution. Very important job and under a lot of time pressure. So I wish you all the best for the standards in terms of the cybersecurity in, for the RED on one hand and the CRA for the other hand. Thank you very much. I would like now to switch to Mr. Slawomir Horniak. Are you online and can you share your screen? So Slawomir is a senior cybersecurity expert in ENISA. Yes, we hear you. Can you share your screen so that you can go through? Perfect. The floor is yours. Yes, we do.
First, read concerns digital services providers, not operators of essential services. So something that was called in the past the CIP, the infrastructure protection and so on. So basically, we have here certain requirements for these operators and for these providers of services. In the area of standards, we still need here quite a bit of sectorial standards that we use as demonstrated compliance with regulations. We have the EIDAS regulation, so this is the regulation on electronic services, electronic identity and trust services, which creates now in Europe a new concept of European digital identity world. This is something that exists already in some member states of the EU, but basically the legislation stipulates the possibility of the obligation of certification of these wallets on the CSA, so under the Cybersecurity Act, meaning that all these legal acts in the EU are overlapping themselves. So what is important here is basically there's a lot of standardization works either need to be done in this area. We have a lot of good standards in the area of digital identities in general, and this is an area that is rather over-standardized and under-standardized, but still, when you speak about certification, for example, it's not that obvious that we have that many standards respond to the requirements of the regulation. CRA, so Cyber Resilience Act, something that also this is what we're talking about. This is another really huge piece of legislation that is still under discussion, so we don't have the final text of it yet. But basically, the proposal stipulates that all producers, all sellers, manufacturers, distributors, importers of product or digital components, wherever this hardware or software, we need to adhere to certain requirements and things like that. And here, the problem is that all these requirements coming from this act have to be translated into standards. So basically, ENISA, so IAPC, together with the European Commission, the University Center, we have proceeded with the first mapping of requirements to existing standards, European and international. We have assessed 1,600 standards almost, and well, the situation is that we have quite a good base for this regulation, although the requirement now is to have a harmonized standard, which in European jargon means that basically these standards also published in the European Journal of European Union, meaning that these standards are somehow equal to laws, meaning that now there's a huge work that is undertaken by especially the DPC team of Sentinel, but also the ETSI, Cyber, actually create some standards for the presumption of compliance requirements of society. We have a lot of other legislation also in the air. You can see here. Also, I will not go through all these legal acts. Just to show you, because the situation in Europe at this moment is very dynamic. We have a lot of proposals. We have a lot of new proposals to legislation, and basically the European Community is working on these proposals, and we are still seeing what the future will bring to us. Now, it's actually the end of the Spanish presidency, where some of these legal acts are partially implemented. Some of them, as you see, have been already published. But as I said, what I actually need to say at the very beginning, the common denominator of all these new legal acts is that they all mention standards as we use presumption of compliance with their regulations. Meaning the standards have become something really important. Thank you very much for your attention.
Thank you very much for your contribution. Yep, there's a whole lot of EU legislation going on cybersecurity. Very challenging not only for the regulator, for the standardization, but definitely for all the users and all stakeholders. Okay, thank you very much for your presentation, and I would like to go to the last person who will be online, and this is Mr. Martin Michelot, Executive Director of the TIC Council in Europe. Mr. Michelot, are you online? We at the moment don't hear you. Mr. Michelot? There you are. We see you, but don't hear you yet. So please, are you going to share your desktop, or do we need to do this? Can you say something, please? Do you hear us? Mr. Michelot? You're having a waiting position, I have the impression. You can start your presentation if you want to. Mr. Michelot, do you hear us? I'll have a look if I can do something about this. That was the previous speaker. So, Mr. Michelot, can you hear us? Do we still have Mr. Michelot online, or? I'm looking at our technical people at the back. Mr. Michelot. Yep, the floor is yours. Thank you very much.
Hello, am I audible
Yes, you
to
are.
all?
Perfect.
Because for the last few minutes, we couldn't listen to the host and the coordinator.
Yeah, just go
We
ahead.
can hear you, but online at least. But we don't have any feedback from the room.
Okay.
And I can also see that we're going to time out in about 2 minutes.
Yeah.
So, I have
So
the-
should I continue or should I wait?
they don't hear us. No, go ahead. Mr. Michelot, do you hear us? Can you put something in the chat so that Mr. Michelot starts his presentation, please? Because apparently we are not being heard.
Yeah, okay, thank you. A very good morning, good afternoon to all of you. In this brief presentation, we would be looking into the landscape in a country, that is India. What we would be looking at is we have the service providers, the communication service providers, the telecommunication service providers providing the services, and whether they were having a free hand in collecting the digital personal information pertaining to a particular user or a particular person. Were they having a free hand like the big technology firms are currently having? So that is what is our point of discussion, whether they were having a free hand or not, and what action have already been taken by the government to regulate the management of the privacy information which is being collected, which is being generated over the telecom network by our service providers. So to start with some basics, the definition of privacy.
Yeah, so he has to make a presentation of?
I don't know.
Have the so-called strategic advisory body on environment in Senelec Sabi. Since quite some years, it goes back to the late 90s.
Okay, so we are having some technical issues around here. That's the least we can say. So I would like to propose to call on the stage Mr. Sriram Birudavula for the next presentation. Mr. Birudavula is the CEO Cybersecurity Center of Excellence. And please be my guest. Are you having a presentation?
Yeah, there's a presentation.
Okay,
good. Doing the post-lunch sessions, and I'm sorry that there were a few technical issues with the other speakers, but I hope to sort of invoke some interest and all, rather than reiterate the technical standards themselves. We'll just delve a little bit into what drives these standards, so that we can spark off a few ideas, and then we can see that how well we can take this, consider these things, factors, while we are building standards, while we are implementing standards, and while we are integrating standards also. So, yeah, first thing is that I'd like to just put up a thought-provoking thing. Why is there so much disruption? First of all, we need to recognize that there is disruption. And this is old data, about 5 to 6 years old data, deliberately, because we don't want to take pandemic and all this into account, then it would be even worse. 52% of the Fortune 500 companies have been merged, acquired, and have gone bankrupt since 2000. So, of course, the title says cloud native is difficult, but not doing it is worse. Which path are we going to take? That's the reason for push for digitalization. The second fact, business cycles are faster than ever before. You see that the life cycle of the companies on standards and poor, these are not small companies, very big billions of dollars companies with vast resources at their disposal. They have shrunk from 60 years to 18 years. What really is going on? Alliance Risk Barometer. Cyber incidents are the #1 risk. Today, they beat all the other ones, like climate change, business interruptions, political risks, and everything. It is really deemed to be the #1 risk in the world today. So how do you deal with something that is the #1 risks? Okay? And you need to set the standards accordingly and all that. You're dealing with a very, very dangerous beast. Just how dangerous is the beast? We'll have a look at it. The magnitude of the problem. If cyber crimes were an economy, it would be the 3rd largest in the world. Okay, first one is US with 24 trillion. China is about 18 or 18.5 trillion. Cyber crimes would be 8 trillion, and the next one is half of that, which is Japan or Germany. Both are around $4 trillion. And then India comes at 3 or 3.5 or something trillion dollars. Okay, so this is the size of things that we are dealing with. So now we can think about all these many, many factors before we set standards, regulations, compliance, and frameworks and industry frameworks. So on the other hand, if you flip it around, it's a $2 trillion market opportunity. And this has been taken from McKinsey, the source. So if you were to look at the breakdown, anyone were to ask what is the breakup of that, you look at all these areas: governance, risk and compliance, email security, cloud security, and all these things. Why am I putting it as a market opportunity rather than just a risk and all? Because I come from an industry body, NASSCOM, DSCI. So we would like to see that how about we not serve just the needs of our country, but address the global needs and thereby create a lot of jobs, a lot of good stuff for us. Okay. So there are in India about 300 homegrown product, domestic cybersecurity product companies. Services are many. So you see the opportunity. It's adequate. And it is very much true that this is an opportunity because the whole thing has gone digital. So with increased digitalization, it does need protection. It's a fair ask. So people will need to invest in that. So the top 6 areas of concern in tech, now this is my own list. One is cloud. Why did I put cloud at the top? Because there is serious centralization of data, personal data and all other data. So that will get hit very badly because people want the benefits of technology. They don't want technology itself. Meaning that you want to connect on the cloud, mail, CRM, SaaS, whatever it is. But you don't want to take the trouble of installing all that mail servers on premise. Hence it moves to cloud where the experts and others can take care of it. Which means that it is also a single point failure and it's a point which will be attacked very heavily. The second one is the applications, plethora of applications, both mobile as well as what you call on all other devices. So that is another area. With its APIs and everything, that's another area that will be attacked. And mobile itself. So while things are centralized, they're also distributed in the sense there is no perimeter to the whole organization. It is work from anywhere. You saw the pandemic, it's work from home, anywhere, and plethora of devices. And AI is a big game changer because AI is going to crunch data like never before, and it's going to give insights. By AI, I meant, of course, I should have added the normal data analytics and all that. Also, for example, let's say the state wants to really improve its economy. What it can do is it can take data which is from credit cards and so on and see what is being spent on, let's say, the tourism department or what are all the spends. And based on that, it can draw patterns and then target specific areas and improve the tourism also. I'm just throwing an example here. Okay, IoT. Obviously, with the advent of 5G, 6G and all this, you're going to have an explosion of devices. And then that's going to cause a lot of data explosion. So in that manner, that is also an area of concern. And of course, the last one I would mention is legacy. Simply because it's like a long snake in which the head is in the latest decade, the tail is in 3 decades or 4 decades old, where it is there. And you need to integrate this, and this is going to cause a plethora of problems. So the other thing from a business point of view, it leads to, and this is something food for thought when you are setting standards, is that microservices are going to increase. It is a long tail. Large number of products are being sold at low volumes. That's the reason why all these microservices and all are being fostered. And then the small number, 20% small products, the large volumes of the 20% small products, large volumes of sale, and 80% large number of products sold at low volume. The long tail is going to increase. And that is going to increase the complexity, because of which your IT and all the systems that are being built are going to improve. Accordingly, standards need to cater to all this. That is the reason why we should encourage or foster those technologies which can cater to all this scaling up and all. That's why the focus will be on MSMEs and many other areas also, in which they can grow and thrive. So key drivers for standardizations and collaboration, standards and collaboration. One is business. So just as I thought that instead of repeating what the other esteemed speakers have been telling, and also like rattling off a bunch of standards in the limited 10 minutes that I have, I would like to look at the key drivers for standards. One is business, which is innovation, the long tail, microservices, entrepreneurship, startups and collaboration. Now, innovation and entrepreneurship are two entirely separate things. Okay, though we mention them in the same breath. A tea shop vendor is an entrepreneur, but he's not an innovator because he's repeating the same thing over and over again, right? In startups, you need both entrepreneurship and innovation. So these have to go hand in hand. And our standardization have to cater to these so that they can all work seamlessly and flexibility together on platforms and through interfaces so that it grows. The value proposition will really increase. Otherwise, they're all fragmented, they're disjointed, they're commercial proprietary interfaces and so on. Then technology and automation, it's a very well-known thing. Emerging, incumbent, and legacy. The emerging ones, the existing ones, and the legacy ones. All three need to work together. And then, of course, the R&D and IPR, how the whole thing goes along with it, the patenting and all. Then next is standards and industry frameworks, which are there, we very well know, right from NISA, ETSI, ISO, NIST, and so on, and our own standards, BIS, so on. So data, analytics, AI, ML, cybersecurity, and data protection is a real boom in data. And of course, talent pool, that's going to drive, which is what is a hot topic, that where do we find the people from to do all these things that we need. Of course, they will use AI, and AI will take away some jobs, but I think the haves and have-nots will be the people with AI tools and the ones without AI tools, who are not using AI tools. And investments, it goes without saying, venture capital or other investments to fuel the startups. And finally, regulations. For example, some 137 countries around the world are going to adopt privacy regimes, data protections. Then, as far as India is concerned, or any other nation is concerned, there will be sectoral regulations, specific to health, specific to insurance, specific to banking, and so on, telecom, and so on. That will increase and sharpen. So just a small, again, side note here, that the way different countries evolve will be based on their unique ecosystem and DNA, right? So, for example, US is driven by business heavily, right? And this one is driven by, Europe is driven by personal law. China is driven by government. So we are driven more by the architecture. That means the way we framed it, okay? So that is there. Here's a very quick career map for, am I out of time? Yeah, you should wrap up. So there are going to be these data privacy job roles that are coming up. And DSCI, Data Security Council of India, has its own privacy framework that's very, very interesting. So we have different aspects of the frameworks. It's a 3-day workshop. I'd highly encourage you to look at it, the framework which is there. And AI, just a quick note that how attacks on AI systems happen, you need to take these into account while framing the new laws, new regulations. Okay, I'll just focus on this one thing like cloud, why security is important there, and the challenges that happen. And for people who think that it's the same clunky one thing, that it's a very standard thing, no. There are different layers in which different players are there in a cloud native stack. It's a whole new ball game. That's one of the reasons why companies are still afraid to use cloud, and we need to use. I'll just close on a couple of things, that there is something called the paradox of the two elephants, a concept in which first any new field happens, there's a burst of activity, lot of volume of activity that happens, then it slowly consolidates and subsides, and then when there is value they see, the big companies and everyone jumps in with investments of billions of dollars. It is very essential that standards be written in the middle. If you do it too early, you've not taken many things into account. If you do it too late, then what happens is so many billions of dollars have already been sunk into proprietary ones. They're not going to withdraw it and do things with it, right? Adopt your standards. So about our Cybersecurity Center of Excellence, we've catered to the pillars: industry, user groups, government, academia, R&D, and collaborations. These are our focus areas, and we've done a lot of things. I will not just showing you that the existing, for example, Cloud Security Alliance itself, instead of focusing on many areas like IoT and mobile and all these things, I've just taken a snapshot cloud. There are 16 areas which translate into 52 control domains. It is quite deep and complex. We need to respect that because you're dealing with the whole ecosystem, right? This is comes from the CSA. Okay, I think I'll just stop here. Here are the ones from different providers, and AI and cloud security together, how they work. So that's it. You can contact me. Here's my number for those of you who need. Okay. You can always get in touch with you. We hold many workshops, many things, and we would really love to, and thank you very much to the Indo-European Conference Management, to Dinesh, my friend, good friend Dinesh, and also CESE, Senelec, and all the people who have been the participants here and the sponsors here. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much, and it's quite clear that we could spend 3 days on cybersecurity because there's so much to talk about, so many things and so many implications. So thank you very much to try and keep an eye on the clock. On the other hand, I would like to invite Mr. Debabrata Nayak for the next presentation. Is there also a presentation of yours? There it is. So Mr. Nayak is head of security of Ericsson. So there we go.
I'll do it. Don't worry. Yeah, I'll finish. I'll finish very quickly. Let's say. Good afternoon, everybody. Good afternoon. Good afternoon. So let me give a little bit perspective on how you can find out there is an analogy between oil and data. In 20th century, you will find out that the whole world is controlled by oil because oil was in crude form. Oil needs refinement, and out of it, we have to find out the necessary intelligence. Similarly, in 21st century, you will find out data that is also in crude form, and it needs refinement, and also it required some kind of information out of it. If you make the comparison, basically you will find out that oil is also controlled by very few countries, and their countries or their GDPs are much more than a lot of countries. Similarly, if you find out data, currently is also controlled by there are few companies. If you analyze the GDP of those companies, they are much bigger than the countries existing here. So there is a lot of analogy exists between the oil and the data. So that is why actually you will find out what way actually will process the data and why every government is really interested to find out the data protection law. So India is not an exception. So we brought our data protection law. So first you see what are the classification of data. Basically if you see we have the 4 types of data. This is what actually the classification of the data has made. Whether it's a digital data, whether it's a personal data, whether it's a non-personal data or a critical data. Critical data means it depends on the environment or the governments where actually they works and their data resides there. So I don't have much details to go each and one because of the allocated time. Otherwise, I could have explained in detail what do you mean by all sets of data, what has been attributed in our PDCP bill. So next is basically there are 4 important terminology used. One is called as data principal. The second one is called as data fiduciary. The third is called as data sovereignty. The fourth one is data localization. And the most important thing if you find out is the data fiduciary. So the person or the organization which is processing the data, that has to be take care of the data. And that what extent it has to process the data, that depends what extent the consent has given to him or the consent has given. So based on this, you will find out our provisions adopted in the DPDP Act. I have written very clearly here 9 provisions are adopted in the DPDP Act. So these provisions are very much essential. One is the applicability, the consent means when you are utilizing the data, you have to take the consent. When you take the consent,
Then if the consent, we need a consent manager also. Based on this, the consent manager, you have to control the amount of data. If the data is not used, sometimes if they require, then you have to say, okay, hey, I am not using your data. I have to return whatever extent I have utilized the data. So these are not a old-fashioned methodology or the law has been drafted in terms of technology changes. These are the new things which have been drafted in our law, which is very good. And also, we have a data protection board is coming, and that data protection will define the various kinds of rule and regulations. And also, the most important thing is, it will define what is the reasonable best security practices that an organization should take care. Similarly, it is not the case of organization. You will find out basically there are a lot of people those are given, suppose in the name of principals, those are taking the data, they have also obligations. If I am not following the obligations, I am liable to penalty. Also, what extent I can make the fiduciary to be engaged, that also questionable. So that's why there are some 6 or 7 gray areas where actually there is a lot of deliberation currently required. And this deliberation is further required to find out the data, what extent it will be used or the law can be fruitfully implemented into the various organizations. So there are a couple of slides I will prefer that you must go through it. That gives what extent you will find out there is a lot of data leakages happening in terms of cloud. As Mr. Srinivas has told, cloud is a very important factor in the technology development front. He has presented 6 points, out of which cloud is the most important thing. So you will find out misconfiguration, compromise of account. There are so many aspects where the data leaks happens in the cloud environment. So similarly, there is a lot of data breaches are happening. I have given some statistics, and you will find out because of that, the CAGR, cumulative annual growth of data breach, is also increasing day and by day. And if you see, the data fines is also increasing from day by day also. So European Union, you will find out there will be a lot of fines as given. This is the statistics I have taken from the European Union. You will find out there are a lot of data breaches is happening, and that is also taken a lot of glitches. Why actually this regulation is most important? Because of these data breaches. And the fines which has been provided by the particular regulations which is existing, whether it's a European Union, whether it will exist in India, in DPDP Act. So you need to provide a particular data protection officer, and that protection officer has to protect your organization data. So I have given a complete secure data life cycle, starting from your taking the data, utilizing the data, managing the data, storing the data, using the data, then archiving the data, then you have to destroy the data. So there are a lot of principles that behind this, there are a lot of things needed when actually you will go for this kind of data secure life cycle. So I thought I will give a comparison between what is happening in terms of California law, what is happening in terms of GDPR, what is happening in terms of DPDP Act. These slides will be available. Dinesh can share with you guys. You can see there is a difference exists between these 3 laws once you go to implement these kind of laws. So, and it is our duty as a company by giving a solutions. So, what I thought, if you are using a particular technological company, you must provide a solution. So here I have given 8 steps. As a DPDP Act, what you need to be compliant if you want to make your organization safe and secure. Similarly, I have given 5 best practices, how you follow these 5 best practices, and based on this you will find out to make your data to be secure. So that is where actually you have to define the framework, and you have to keep this DPDP compliance part, you have to keep this your best practices part, then you have to map with your controls and make your data secure. So similarly, in terms of data protection bill also, you will find out there are some measures that you need to provide you appoint a DPO, you do a privacy analysis, you go to the control wise and do a impact analysis, you make a privacy enhancing preserving algorithms, you find out where actually your, for example, let's say we are operating in the telecom world. For us is the CDR data. Your customer data is very important to us. So we have to develop an algorithm to preserve that data. We have to create a log mechanism to store that data. We have to rotate that log mechanism so that we can store for 1 year of that data. So these kind of technical measures that you need to develop in your equipments, so that will take care of in the future. So so this is my last slide. So before leaving, I am just giving a very practical example. I think that will be important for all of you to understand, since Srinivas has given 3 technology. One is called as mobile, second one he told us artificial intelligence, third one he told us cloud. I could pick these 3. So I was traveling from Delhi to Mumbai, and it was an Indigo flight. When I was traveling in the Indigo flight, a person was sitting near me. So in that time, I find out the pilot go to the cockpit and the flight started go to the turbulence. And the person sitting to me, he started looking at the cockpit. Because I told, don't worry, it is Airbus 320. It is a high-end artificial intelligence-based machine. It is learning with machine learning algorithms. He told, I don't care. Where is the pilot? So in the meantime, the pilot came, and the pilot go to the cockpit, and it is a coincidence, and the flight gets settled. So he said, look, this artificial intelligence, this machine learning does not solve the problems unless human beings intervene there. So that's why your Mr. Srinivas, your cloud, your artificial intelligence, all this will be reside in the big data is your machine that is resides in your space. So all this will be operate when there will be a human factor in it. Thank you very much. Thank you for your patience.
Thank you very much for this lively presentation and full of heart. We still have 2 speakers. I hope you can bear with us still a little bit. We have online Mr. Martin Michelot. Martin, do you hear us? Just a second. We're putting the volume on. Hello, Martin.
Hello to everyone.
There we go. The floor is yours.
Thank you very much. Just give me 1 second so that I pull up my slides.
Keep it a bit short, because we are really out of time at the moment. So, thank you very much.
Thank you. So I actually wanted to speak to you today about the Cyber Resilience Act, which we heard from the other, heard a bit from the other speakers. Let me still try to find my slides. Just give me 1 more second. I know we have to be quick. Because they're not showing up. Here's everything. All right, so you should now be able to see my slides. So my name is Martin Michelot. I represent TIC Council. TIC Council is the international trade association representing the independent test and inspection and certification sector. We provide conformity assessment services for regulatory reasons or for good practice reasons. You heard from some of the previous speakers a bit about the Cyber Resilience Act, and I maybe wanted to tell you a bit more about this, because I think this is an important piece of legislation coming from the European Union that will have an impact on global markets and on manufacturers across Europe, across India, and across the world, access to the European market will now be bound by different rules. And I just wanted to tell you a bit about this because I really think it is something that is important. So in terms of the scope of the Cyber Resilience Act and how this will apply, you can see on the slide that it would apply to all products that are placed on the internal market of the European Union with digital elements whose intended or reasonably foreseeable use includes a direct or indirect logical or physical data connection to a device or to our network. So you can see this really covers a wide range of products. It means consumer electronics, industrial control systems, energy management, online banking. That's very wide. And what's actually surprising is that it includes both tangible and intangible products, which means hardware and software. So this is something that is very very interesting in terms of the scope of what the products cover. And then you go into the how section, and that's also very interesting. Is that the manufacturers must design these products in line with what they call essential cybersecurity requirements, manage the vulnerabilities throughout their life cycle, and these two aspects are verified by a conformity assessment. And how is this done concretely? The Cyber Resilience Act text requires cybersecurity measures to be implemented from the product design and development phase and throughout the life cycle of a product. And in terms of standards, it's interesting because for the design phase of cybersecurity requirements, there's already a lot of work and business investment that exists at a global and regional level here, and there is no need to reinvent the wheel. I think Mr. Gorniak has mentioned this already. There's already a lot of standards that exist out there, so we should definitely be looking at that. So I'm being very quick because you asked me to, but I think that the objectives of the CRA are really shared by the whole cybersecurity community and society, and that they really intend to achieve a resilient and cybersecure European market. I'll just go a bit more into how the text also applies to other parts of the European Union legislation, because obviously the Cyber Resilience Act overlaps with several other pieces of legislation, and that can create gaps or contradictions in the essential requirements for covering a product. So I think, first of all, we have to mention that there is a certain interplay between the Cyber Resilience Act and the new legislative framework. And the NLF framework, which covers the safety of machinery, for example, which covers pressure equipment, all aspects that can be digital. Here is where there is a certain overlap. There's also an interplay with cybersecurity. For example, the EU regulatory environment on cybersecurity is already quite complex, as you heard from ENISA. You have the Radio Equipment Directive, you have the Cybersecurity Act, and obviously this creates sort of a legal complexity for manufacturers and uncertainty for end users. For example, there is specifically, you have Radio Equipment Directive requirements and harmonized standards such as IEC 62443. This creates a certain amount of uncertainty on the interplay. Is the existing cybersecurity framework does not match perfectly the CRA requirements, and here is where the importance of standards is really coming along. And I think here, if there's one message I want to leave you with, whether you're a small, medium-sized manufacturer, whether you're a large manufacturer, I think when you look at all the bubbles here, and I'm not even mentioning the general product safety rules, I'm not mentioning the NIS2, I'm not mentioning AI, really there is a special attention and alignment that should be done with regards to high product categories that are high risk product categories that are identified in other legislation. And really, I think here the tech sector speaking of the compliance of manufacturers, I will be very quick here because I want, again, I'm asked to be short on time. but you see what are the obligations of manufacturers on this slide. The first step that a manufacturer will have to take is to do a risk assessment of the product following a risk-based approach, and that's a phase where manufacturers will assess whether their products may be subject to the Cyber Resilience Act, and how their business will be classified depending on the risk exposure of their products. And this assessment will determine the measures that the manufacturers need to take, or that the measures that need to comply with in order to comply with the requirements of the CRA. And here it's quite important in terms of due diligence, because manufacturers will have to check their supply chains in terms of cybersecurity, and also exercise due diligence when integrated components that are sourced from third parties. I think there's also, again, for the sake of being very fast, a very big discussion in Europe about the incident reporting obligations that manufacturers will have towards their national cybersecurity centers and towards the European Cybersecurity Agency. Always a question that I have when I see this is, who verifies if these obligations are implemented and how? So there will be preventive mechanisms through conformity assessment. I'll get to this in my next slide. There will also be, as usual, an ex-post mechanism of compliance through market surveillance. And when non-compliance is found, market surveillance authorities in Europe can require manufacturers to bring this non-compliance to an end, or to prohibit that the product is made available. And if there is an issue, you can always levy fines. Here, I really want to highlight on what's important for me, and it's really that the risk assessment is done properly, because the lack of a proper risk assessment really determines how the product will be categorized, and how the levels of protection, the levels of cybersecurity by design, cybersecurity by default that it will have to have. And honestly, I'd be very curious to hear from the manufacturers who are in the room whether they're able to make a risk assessment, if they have a proper risk assessment methodology for their products. And why I'm saying this as well, again, continuing to go quick, is that depending on the risk categorization of the product, either the product will be placed in the default category mode, and it can be placed on the market under self-declaration of conformity. Either it's in class 1 and it can be put on the market if it complies fully with the harmonized European standards, which will still take a bit of time to come, or otherwise, if it's class 1 but with no harmonized standards, or class 2, then it will have to be checked by independent third-party notified body. Here, I think that this is something that will provide higher certainty for the cybersecurity of the market. I'll just end again very quickly on this slide here. I just want to show you or tell you that the certification ecosystem is really evolving very rapidly. In Europe and in the world, you have many different legislations in different regions. You have very different standardization processes, and from the perspective of conformity assessment bodies, as much alignment as possible is really the best, because our industry really aims to help manufacturers get their products to the market. Also, in terms of quality infrastructure, what's important for us is to have accredited services and to have standards, basically to complete the trilogy of quality infrastructure, so conformity assessment, standards, and accreditation, in order to ensure that everything works properly. Accreditation is important because it ensures a level playing field and a minimum set of verified competence that can check that standards are being applied. So, and then just also to highlight the fact that our industry is moving very, very quickly. We started using digital technologies to support conformity assessment, remote inspections, sensors, intelligent manufacturing. These are all things that we do. And we have an industry that is moving more towards auditing of processes, of systems, of people, rather than doing the old school check of the product. So really, we're an industry that fosters trust between the manufacturer and the regulator and the consumer. The Zoom session is about to time out, so I have to stop now. But I thank you very much for giving me the opportunity, and I wish you a very successful conference. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much for this extensive information, as it is all extremely important to make sure that we are getting into the right touch with the quality infrastructure. Now, this leaves us to the last, but definitely not the least speaker for today on this topic, on this session, Mr. Kichi Butler. He is a scientist, deputy director, BIS. Please, the floor is yours. And do you also have a presentation? So let's have a look in here.
So thank you, and hello everyone. As I'm standing at the last of this session and in between the next session and the tea, so I won't take much time and I will be skipping many slides, but will be coming to the main points. So basically I was about to cover overview of Bureau of Indian Standards and what standards as of now we have related to cybersecurity as well as data privacy. So overview of BIS I will try to skip, but in some points only, that BIS, as you are aware, it's National Standards Body of India, and as National Standards Body of India, we are developing standards in many areas, which are specifically IT and non-IT as well, and the specific standards we can develop in any of the fields. And we are driven by Bureau of Indian Standards Act 2016. We have some specification which gives us the powers to develop standards, and the standards are being developed on, in line with these acts, rules and regulations. The core activities of BIS are related to standard formulation, conformity assessment, but basically today we are talking mainly related to standard formulation. This slide I will just skip that structure, and we have different sectors. I would say 15 divisions are there in Bureau of Indian Standards. In 15 divisional councils we develop standards, and in these 15 divisional councils, these the councils which I have now highlighted in the bold are specifically working in the sector of, I believe, the cybersecurity. There are others also which are, I couldn't find that if there is any field in which cybersecurity would not be involved, but these are the sectors where specifically some type of standardization is already being going on, or we are about to start specific standardization aspects there. But nonetheless, all other sectors are there, but these sectors are utilizing the standards or the best practices which we have related to the horizontal, I would say, standards. So at international level, we are liaising with ISO, IEC, and the JTC1, the Joint Technical Committee 1. We try to have the stakeholders which are from the government, regulators, industry, academia. So specific standards which we are developing, that these were the sectors, but we have a national action plan as well, 2022 to 2027, and these are the areas which we have identified after this, I would say, extensive stakeholder consultation, that these are the areas in which in these 5 years we will be developing standards. Data privacy is one of these, cybersecurity, mobile security we were talking about, we have also captured that, we have standards as well as that. We were discussing about that, one of the speakers mentioned that there should be standards related to data governance as well as the maturity. So we are already working on those aspects, and I believe the standard is in the final stages to, after that it would be a final published Indian standard. Then overall coming up to the trustworthiness aspect, trustworthiness is related to the cyber security. So if there is something we can call it a trustworthiness in terms of cyber security, then we can say that the cyber security risks have been already minimized. So we are trying to work in this area as well. So other areas are also there. But specifically related to security and privacy, I try to give this analogy always that in the physical world, there is always the law of land. But when we go to the digital world, law of land is already there. But what additionally you need to do apart from the law of land? The standards comes into picture. And standards will either, one thing, help you in adhering to rules and regulations, and second thing, it also helps in your business opportunities, enhancement, all these things are there, but rules and regulations would always be, we could say that, complied with the help of standards. What standards basically provides, it's in the field of, I would security, we do not go into the, I would say, the details of the technological tools that are to be used. These could be mentioned, but these are just as a guidance. But what should be there, that what are the best practices which could be utilized by everyone, as well as how you could assure that whatever product is there, whatever services you are doing, there is a security parameters have been there, and how you can validate as well. So all these things are trying to be covered in standards. So basically, we have different committees, but I will be just highlighting some specific committees which are dealing with related to the aspects of cybersecurity or privacy. LITD 17, Information System Security and Privacy, and international level, we are liaising with the ISO ICJTC1 SC27. I have listed some standards of this, will be in the next slides. Then is another committee, which is ETD 18, which is related to industrial process measurement and control. And at international level, we liaison here with IEC-TC 65. So the previous committee, I would say, was primarily related to the IT, and this committee is primarily related to the OT aspects. And another committee, which is of the service sector, because major, we could say, in terms of services we have where, in terms of economy, implications is there related to the financial services. So we have a SSD3 banking and financial services, and international level also ISO TC60H, which is related to financial services, which is developing many standards related to these aspects. And then I'm just listing down some of the standards, but due to paucity of time, I won't be giving to details of these standards. So one standard which all of, I would say, the players of the industry are already aware, the 27000 series is there, related to 27001, which is somehow is a horizontal which could be applied in each and every sector, but for each and every sector, some additional controls or some additional, I would say, the guidance is there, which is either being already there, being revised, or being developed. For example, we were, previous speakers mentioned related to the cloud. So there is specifically the standard 27017, which is related to cloud, how the 27001 could be applied in the cloud sector. And that standard, I would say, whoever is interested, please give your inputs to BIS, because the standard is under revision. So this is the right time. If you have anything concerns related to the cloud, please provide, and we will get that how it could be incorporated at the international level. Then standard, there is a 27032, which is recently published, which is specifically in the field of cybersecurity. There are different aspects, the network, application, internet. So this is specifically providing you the guidance related to the internet security. Then the 27103 is there, which is, I would say, the compendium of the standards, which gives you what all overall standards in the field of ISO IEC, and which we have also adopted in related to the cybersecurity field. Then overview of concepts in cybersecurity, 27100. Then network security, application security, all these are listed, and you can have a look into when the slides would be shared with you. Then one specific now related to IoT, 27400 has been just published, which is related to IoT. Then we have a set of standards which are related to evaluation criteria of IT security, methodology of IT security evaluation, then what could be the competence requirements for the who are the evaluators of the security aspects. Then for the perspective of OT, we have IS IEC 62443 series, which is the adoption of the IEC 62443 series. Then specifically in the power sector, we have one indigenous standard, 16335, that what security requirements the power sector have, but that standard is also now being revised. Similarly, related to privacy, we are talking about the data privacy. So we have indigenous standard, which we have taken care of, I would say, all the frameworks which were there. IS 17428, data privacy assurance standards. Now, because we have now the Privacy Act as well, so considering that, now we have started revision of this standard to align whatever the terminology and I would say the requirements are there, so that we incorporate this. Because when we had published this standard in the late 2020 or the early 2021, at that time we had developed this standard based on that bill at that time which was there, which was after some time, I would say, discarded and the new bill came. So now we will be aligning everything related to with respect to the new act. So whoever would be interested, your inputs are welcome there. Then we were talking about the mobiles. We have standards which we developed based on the, I would say, request of the government only, the Ministry of Electronics and STQC, IS 17737 series, which is specifically related to the mobile device security. Whatever everyone have the mobile, either you use it for the personal work or professional work. How we could ensure the security aspects of the mobile device, primarily the OS aspect, applications which are pre-installed there, as well as some aspects of the hardware also. The controls are listed, and how that could be evaluated and tested, that also has been mentioned in this 4-part series of standards. Then some under development documents for IoT at international level. This standard is under development, which is related to specific guidance related to IoT devices. And we are contributing from India, then IoT domotics, then a cybersecurity labeling framework that is also for the IoT, consumer IoT, I would say. And we know that some standards are there related from HC as well in this field, that we are also looking into that when we will be developing Indian standard. So we incorporate everything from the ISO, IC and other fields as well. And for that perspective only, I will be informing the next slide that we are developing an indigenous standard which is specifically related to IoT devices. There's a standard at international level which is for the IoT device controls, just like 27001 has controls. So 27400 standard is there, which is for IoT controls, whichever is there. How to assess and how to evaluate and what additional guidance in the perspective of Indian context could be there, that IoT device standard we are developing, and I would say that within next 3 to 4 months that should be a published standard. We were talking about AI, the previous speakers mentioned that, and for AI as well, I would say the 2 standards already we have just started, related to 27090 and 27091 under development. This is initial stages, that both the perspective, the security and privacy concerns due to AI, as well as security and privacy concerns in the AI systems, that we've been trying to capture there in these 2 standards. This is the one I was talking about, IoT devices. So we will be issuing the revised IoT device standard most likely in the next month for public comments again. So that after that we'll be finalizing the standard. Apart from this, one more standard that we will soon be starting, that is related to management of mobile application permissions. So everyone have the mobile, we have the lot of applications installed, but what kind of permissions we are giving, we know, but what data they are collecting, no one knows, and for what purpose they are capturing. And they have their own, I would say, points for which they are collecting. But to assure the consumer, as well as also that from the perspective of application developer and mobile manufacturer, that they can also assure that they are providing the applications and the permissions are only for the purpose for which it has been collected, the consent point. For that, we will be soon starting the development of standard, which will specifically for management of mobile application permissions. So I would think that was all mainly related to the aspects, and whoever is, I would say, willing to contribute to standardization activities, please just contact BIS. There is no membership fee for that, but what we request is you provide us regular inputs. Thank you.
today for cybersecurity. 9 speakers. We have had quite some interesting information, very comprehensive, and going from from regulation over standardization to conformity assessment. So we've seen the whole lot, what is necessary, but still a lot to be built. Thank you very much for the speakers here in the room, but also online. Thank you for the audience for your patience and your willingness to listen to all that information. And also thank you to Dinesh for the invitation and the very lively information that we have received. So the floor is yours.
Thank you. Thank you, Bim. Thank you, dignitaries on the dais and speakers online. Yes, with the technical glitches. We had technical glitches, but I think we managed it. We are running quite late. So no tea break. Please take your tea, bring your tea and sit here again because we are starting immediately the next session. But before we do that, let's give them a round of applause, and I would like Wim to please felicitate our dignitaries. To begin with Dr. Shriram. Devta Nayak, please. Kshitijji, please. Maybe I can give him. And I will take the onus to give you one.
The privacy law implemented in GDPR. So this, you send me your email ID. I have already got a lot of messages. So I will definitely share the detailed analysis we have done in 60 countries. We have been extensively DPOs